Welcome to the 30/30 Health Podcast. The following discussion is for education and entertainment. It is not intended to diagnose or treat disease. Please do not apply any of this information without first discussing it with your doctor. Here is your host, Guillermo Ruiz.
Hello everyone. Earlier this month, the American Academy of Physicians published new guidelines for the treatment of low back pain. They changed their stance on pharmacological agents as first-line therapies, and now suggest using complementary medicine such as exercise, yoga, and acupuncture as first-line treatments. I included the paper and an article on the subject on the podcast links in my website. That's 3030strong.com/podcast. My guest today is Dr. Tyna Moore. We talked about pain management, and we had a great discussion on the benefits of prolotherapy, diet, and exercise to help ease pain. Dr. Moore is recognized as an authority in the application of natural pain solutions and regenerative injection therapies to treat all varieties of musculoskeletal conditions. As both a certified naturopathic and chiropractic physician, she brings a unique perspective and expertise to the diagnosis and treatment of orthopedic conditions. I hope you enjoyed the show. And remember, if you like my podcast, leave me a review on iTunes. It really makes a difference. Hello everyone, I'm here with Dr. Moore. I met her at the Bulletproof Conference, and she's just an amazing naturopath and chiropractor. And for anyone that's out there that doesn't know about Dr. Moore, can you, 2-second introduction?
2-second introduction. Okay, so I'm Tyna Moore. I am a naturopath, a chiropractor in Portland, Oregon, and I specialize in regenerative medicine and regenerative injection therapies.
Awesome. And we're gonna go deep into that topic, okay? But I like to start my conversation just knowing more about the person, because sometimes, when we have someone we admire, we don't see their struggle or we don't see their journey. I call it the hero's journey. How did you start in this naturopathic profession or this chiropractor profession? How did you go from being like a high school student all the way to saying, I want to be a doctor?
I decided when I was 12 that I was going to be a doctor. So I was pretty clear on that. I was a really, really, really sick little kid. And I was sort of put through the ringer and the torture of modern medicine as a child, a young child. And I remember being age 5 thinking there has got to be a better way to do this. So really just knowing that I was going to be an MD, working myself up through that. And then flash forward to college. I'm working at Oregon Health Sciences University. It's the 90s. It's the mid 90s. And a neurologist up there the head neurologist up there told me that if he spent more than 7 minutes in a room with a patient, he was losing money.
Jeez.
Because of HMOs at the time, because of health insurance, which broke my heart. So I quickly did a 180 and decided to become a marine biologist, which didn't pan out. And then I ended up working for Dr. Rick Marinelli, who was a naturopath, and an acupuncturist in the late 90s. And I started as his receptionist. And that's where I learned about naturopathic medicine. I'd always been a patient of chiropractics, and that was really the one practitioner who listened to me and took care of me and really helped me and didn't just blow me off like all the other doctors did. I spent my whole life literally in and out of specialist offices. So
what kind of trouble were you showing up with, or what was your main concern?
It was really vague, and what it turned out to be, it was a vague conglomeration of random health ills, and then it ended up ultimately me figuring out in my 20s that I had autoimmune disease.
Wow.
So that, it was just manifesting as a variety of things.
Yeah.
Always, constantly. My mom always joked if she had all the money she spent on medical bills, she would be a rich woman. So that, and I was a gymnast, so I was just crazy and kept breaking things. But so I ended up in Rick Marinelli's office working for him, and I started seeing the work he was doing, he's since passed away from cancer in 2013, but his work was pioneering in pain management, in chelation, in just holistic naturopathic pain management. He was really bringing the charge, and I was blown away at what I was seeing in his office and what I was helping with. So that was really what sparked the rest of my journey.
So, at SCNM, I'm about to graduate, and I've had a lot of pain management shifts that, under the supervision of Dr. Vance Inouye. it's so amazing that I've seen people roll in on a wheelchair with low back pain and walk out.
Yeah.
And there is, there is nothing as, gratifying as having something like that. And then when the patient, their pain resolution is so immediate, and now you sit them down and you say, okay, I fix you right now, but in order for you to prevent this, you need to change your diet. You need to change the way you eat. You need to exercise and strengthen your core. And now you have buy-in, because they're like, I never want to be in this pain again, and I don't want to do this again. And now you have a person that is going to change their lives for sure.
Exactly. I always I've told people since, when I entered school, I was pretty clear on what I wanted to do, ultimately where I was going. And the vision in my head for how my practice was going to be was pretty well laid out. And I got slack for that in school. People were like, "Oh, you're so aggressive. You're so assertive." It's like, no, I'm just clear. I know exactly where I'm going with this. I wanted to be an amazing prolotherapist and injection therapist. And to live up to Rick's legacy, that was quite the bill. So I became a chiropractor as well, because I knew I needed both to be even half as good as he was. But I always tell doctors when they ask me, how do you do it? How do you have a successful cash practice? It's like pain and vanity. Those are the two motivating factors for patients. It's true, pain and vanity. When someone's looking in the mirror because of years of chronic pain and they don't recognize themselves anymore because their adrenals have tanked, their thyroid's tanked, the sequelae that happens to the hormonal system when you're in chronic pain, and then they're eating poorly, and the on and on the cycle goes, and then the pain has just devastated them. That's the vanity piece. And then the pain piece, as you said, I've been in terrible chronic pain for a long time, and there is nothing more motivating. Because once you get a flavor of getting out of it and you realize it's completely up to you as an individual. These treatments we apply as physicians are awesome, but none of that means a damn if the person's not taking really exceptional care of themselves.
Oh, I've been hooked up to a TENS machine, for 16 hours so I can get through the school day, and so a couple of months ago, I went hiking, and I was jumping off of a 20-foot cliff. I tweaked my back, but it wasn't crazy. I just had some pain. And then I took my dog to the dog park, and I threw a frisbee, and my back froze.
Oh,
so then
terrible.
I had a meeting with Dr. Inoue, and he was like, "Why are you walking like that?" And I go, "Well, I think I hurt my back." And he said, "Go in the treatment room." And he injected me, and immediately I could feel my muscles let up.
Yeah.
When we talk about pain management, at least in my experience, I'm not seeing CrossFitters. I'm not seeing people that are, in elite athletic level that just tore their, they strained their rotator cuff or anything. I'm seeing real people. I'm seeing real people that have been in chronic pain and want to get off oxycodone or opioids.
Wow, that's a tough crowd.
And and one of the biggest problems that we have in healthcare right now is the opioid epidemic.
Yes.
And unless we start treating these people and treat the underlying cause, not just the pain, we're going to get deeper into this hole.
It's a mess.
Now, what kind of patients are you seeing, and who benefits from your services?
So I'm going to say something pretty controversial here, and I'll probably upset some of my colleagues and my friends, but maybe even some of my mentors. But I started studying through the help of my friend and colleague, Dr. David Harrell. He's a PhD. Yeah. He's a stem cell researcher. He started studying, and we started a conversation based on, I tipped him off. I'm like, hey, find out about this and this. And we started looking at stem cells and in mice and looking at the studies. And basically, if you're obese, your stem cells, at least in mice, it's a complete nightmare. Like those stem cells, and I've always said this, I've known this for a long time in practice. If a patient comes to me and they are not well and healthy to start with, I really feel like their stem cells and their PRP is not really worth a damn. It's not very effective. And I would send them away. I would send away probably 50 to 60% of the new patients who came in my door, because I felt like I was doing them a disservice by taking their money, applying a treatment that was only going to be half-assed successful, and giving them false hope. it felt unethical. And so on that note, Dr. Harrell started doing some research for me, and we started talking and having conversations and realizing that this is in fact true. I was right.
Hmm.
And I do think it's an ethical dilemma, and I don't think it's appropriate to be applying these perhaps prolotherapy, which I think is an affordable treatment that's accessible, but using these fancier treatments on patients who are their hormonal milieu is a mess, their gut's a mess, they're obese, they're inactive, they're deconditioned. I feel like it's really an ethical issue.
Wow.
And I don't think it works on them. And I think applying a treatment that you know is probably not going to work is actually an ethical conundrum as a physician. And so you do have to start the patient somewhere. I do think that it's fair to apply one treatment and say, okay, now get moving, and here's the person that can help you do that, or here's the tools to do that. But continuing to apply treatments to somebody who's in that state, that's the problem I have. So I closed my practice actually
Wow.
to pretty much if someone doesn't deadlift, if someone's not in good shape and good health, I personally won't see them as a patient because
Wow.
there's plenty of doctors out there doing what I'm doing. And do they have my skill set? I don't know. That I'm sure some do, some don't. I'm an old school prolotherapist, so I feel like I get different results based on that. And I'm a chiropractor, so I have a different biomechanical understanding. But I think that if somebody's healthy and they're coming to me and I can look at them literally and tell them with some certainty how much better they're going to get, and I'm rarely wrong. And so
Wow.
based on that, I got tired of having everybody coming in only to send them away.
Yeah.
So the types of patients I'm seeing are people like myself and maybe you. Were active. I consider myself an athlete. I train 3 times a week with a goal in mind, which is to get stronger and to be harder to kill. So I feel like that's an athlete, like my training is first and foremost prioritized in my life. So people of all ages, all income brackets, it doesn't matter as long as, and some high level athletes, some professional athletes, but the goal being strong people, keeping them moving, keeping them strong, keeping them healthy. People who have already done the work to optimize their stem cells
Wow.
are the patients I treat. I really don't, I really will turn away deconditioned and of ill health people. And that's not a snobby thing. I just personally feel like I am cheating them of what could be
Wow. That's
if I don't give them the come to Jesus talk and say no.
and maybe that's the motivator they need.
I hope. I wonder. I sometimes wonder. I've had people say, you know what, you saved my life. Like you sent me out the door. Just to have them come in and have that talk, though, is the hard part. I was getting so much of that. And so that's why people have to go through an application process to get into my practice at this point, just because I really want to keep it to people that I can help. I do offer online services to help people. It's like, no, you're not a candidate, but here's this 4-week program that can really get you dialed in, where I've given you all the keys to the castle. So
And maybe just changing to a less inflammatory diet is the only thing they need.
absolutely, absolutely. Or getting off chronic cardio. We know
Yeah.
that chronic cardio is pro-inflammatory and it's not really helping anyone's joints. And so getting the person optimized, and I send them to great practitioners. I've got a great network of people I work with, doctors and practitioners. It's like, hey, go see this person, get your stuff handled and dialed, and then come back to me.
That's awesome.
So I just have a different practice that way, and I get a lot of slack for it, but I feel like that's where my heart is, and that's what I'm comfortable with.
And first off, we are naturopaths, and we have to first do no harm. And having someone come in for injection after injection after injection after injection, that's not naturopathic medicine.
I agree.
And secondly, I've been geeking out on fascia right now. And as a chiropractor, maybe you can give me some, to elucidate some, maybe I'm like completely wrong on this one, but I feel that, since fascia is not as bouncy, as stretchy as muscle, if you don't correct the fascia, those muscles are not going to glide. Those bones that you're trying to reset, they're not going to stay. And unless we do some deep tissue massage, unless we do some fascial work, stretching, yoga, all these different things to make you more, harder to kill.
Right.
You can adjust and adjust and adjust. You can inject and inject and inject.
Right.
And unless you fix the underlying problem, you're screwed.
Right. I completely agree. And going even further, the fascia is really in my head like a communication highway. And when I see bound, and I suffer from it too, from years of a pro-inflammatory diet and taking terrible care of myself. I mean, I was a chain smoker. From 14 to 24, I smoked a pack of cigarettes a day. I lived off Sun Chips and Snapple and
Because
macaroni
Sun
and
chips are
cheese.
good for you.
Oh, I know. I was a
They're
macaroni and
baked.
cheeseitarian. And so I have a lot of fascial adhesions. And with that in mind, that's so based on people's diet and their omega-3 fatty acid profile, and, just all of the things that keep us, I always say, juicy.
Yeah.
Hormones are huge. When I was in school, my hormones dropped to literally zero, all of them. And I felt like a dried up chicken breast. Like if you overcook a chicken breast and leave it on the counter, and I felt like my bones were going to shatter if I fell down. That's where I came to strength training. But like being juicy that's when I say to patients, like, you need to be juicier. You're too dried out. That's not just a hydration issue. That's a fascial adhesion, inflammatory state. And, when I was harvesting people's fat to get their stem cells out of their adipose tissue, you can tell you break through these with a cannula, you break through these fascial barriers that are crunchy and they bleed and it's a mess. You can tell like, oh man, this is really inflammatory fat. And I'm going to take this inflammatory fat, concentrate it down and inject it into this hot mess of a joint. Like that is not a good idea.
No. and it's not a good idea for you because you know the consequences. It's not a good idea for the patient because they're not going to they might receive some benefit from it, but they are paying you their hard-earned money for a cash-based practice.
Yes.
And in this world of competition, if you're not a good practitioner, you're going to sink.
Yep.
So it's better to be upfront with your patients than to try to, just earn the next month's rent.
Right. I completely agree. It's not, since I started practice, like as a pearl for all new practitioners, I promised myself that each day when I finished a day of practice, that I would visit with the idea of, did I function in greed? Was there any amount of greed? Did I sell them 8 bottles of supplements? Did I perform procedures that were unnecessary? And I can honestly say the answer has always been no. And the few times where a patient talked me into it and said, I know it's probably going to be a mess. And I know because I can look at them and be like, you are a hot mess of inflammation. I mean, no personal judgment here, but like if I take your inflamed blood and inflamed fat and put it in these inflamed joints, particularly postmenopausal women, that's the big group that tends to flare, and they would insist I do it. I can tell you 5, 6, 7 weeks later, I'm still on the phone with those patients. Those patients are not happy. They don't like me. They don't remember our conversation, even though I documented it and wrote it down and handed it to them. They're in a world of misery, and I don't want to do that so that I can pay my bills. I would rather not. I would rather not have them even come in the door. I'd rather them go see a nature. I don't do that work anymore of cleaning up people's diet, but I'd rather have them go see someone who does and get them dialed in and then treat them. And I can tell you with certainty, every time I thought, this isn't a great idea, but I'm going to do it. And not in a greed fashion, but because the patient flew in from another country or another state and they were like, I'm here, do it. And we performed the treatment. I regretted it. So listening to your intuition and not coming from a place of greed, I think, is paramount to surviving.
Now, you had a really big stage when you presented at the Bulletproof Conference.
Yeah.
And then we're talking about some of your future presentations. Can you tell my listeners what you talked about?
Yeah. So I talked about kind of this. I talked about, my title was Barbells and Stem Cells, and it was really just about my journey through finding the barbell and what that's done for me, but how optimizing your stem cells naturally with the way that you live, the food you eat, how you sleep and move and strengthen yourself, and the relationships you keep, all of those things impact your stem cells. And we can do a lot for ourselves just naturally by optimizing our own endogenous, meaning your own internal supply of stem cells. You can really change your life that way. So that's when I say regenerative medicine as an umbrella term. I don't mean just the injections. I mean all of it. Some want to call it anti-aging medicine. Some want to call it rejuvenating medicine, whatever. I call it regenerative medicine because I'm trying every day to live my life in a way that regenerates my cells optimally. And not kill off all my mitochondria and not have my cells go aberrant rogue and turn into cancer cells. So,
yeah.
And then that's really where I'm focusing at this point, is I just want to create content online that people can access affordably so that they can learn how to do that for themselves. And you know this, self-care is a big deal. We throw that term around loosely as naturopaths, but for me to keep my crazy autoimmune system and my health and my body and my sanity all in check so that I can go out and do the things I want to do, be a good mother, be a good friend, be a good citizen in society, it takes a ton of care. It takes a big ritual every day that involves certain foods, certain supplements, sauna, strength training, certain amounts of sleep. And my body tells me very quickly if I'm off track. Mm. And I listened to that. And I just went to the OANP, the Oregon Association of Naturopathic Physicians, and I ran into a colleague and he was like, you literally get younger every year. Like, how are you doing? Because when I was in school, I was doing both programs concurrently. I was a mess of health.
I can't imagine.
Oh my God, I weighed like 115 pounds and I looked like I was dying and I felt like I was dying. And it took me a decade to crawl out of that. And that's why I only practice a few days a week, because I can't manage I don't want to stress my system too hard. I'm far more concerned about longevity and health and wellness. Seeing Rick die from cancer was complete 180. I think it saved my life.
I want to take what you just said and I want to take it in two different directions. Mm-hmm. First, you were 115 pounds. How many women out there want to be 115 pounds? And you're not 115 pounds now, and I bet you look way hotter now than at 115.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I'll get you some pictures. 115, I was a skeleton. And that, I grew up in Southern California where it was in vogue to just starve yourself to death. And it's still in vogue. When I go down there, it breaks my heart. I see a bunch of ladies with artificial breasts and flat butts. Sadly, those women come into my office when they're in their 50s and 60s and they're in chronic debilitating pain.
Osteopenia, osteoporosis.
Oh my goodness. And a hip fracture. I mean, that is the kiss of death.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, you break your hip and there is a very, very high likelihood, at least 90% or above, that you will soon or within 10 years die. So for me, I'm always thinking like, be harder to kill. And I weigh about 140 now and I feel so much better. I can't even, it's night and day. I'm a different human being. Literally a different human being.
One of the things that I hear a lot, or I see on social media about barbell training is that, well, I don't want to look like a guy.
Right.
But, training, you're going to look like a woman if you're a woman, you train. And a guy is going to look like a guy if they train. Yep. Unless a guy does chronic cardio and then they start looking more women-like.
That's true. Well, in every society across the world, the ideal hip to waist ratio is about 70%. So, or waist to hip ratio. So it doesn't matter what society or what village or what country these people were surveyed, that is the ideal feminine build. And you can only get that by having a bigger gluteal region than you do a waist region. And we all know that having blood sugar dysregulation and tons of cortisol and tons of stress gives you a gut. It gives you visceral fat underneath your muscle, and then it gives you subcutaneous fat over the top. And eating a lot of carbs and having insulin resistance basically turns you into a little potato-shaped woman. It doesn't matter how big your butt is. And so really getting that waist down, it's not about vanity. It's about health. Mm-hmm. It's about keeping that ratio in check is absolutely about optimal health, optimal hormonal status. I train for my hormones' sake. And so if I have healthy menses, nice hip to waist ratio, healthy breast tissue, that's what I'm looking for. Healthy libido, healthy energy levels. Like if I overtrain, which is easy for me to do, then that starts to go away. So women really need to get over, we don't have the hormonal milieu to look like men. Mm-hmm. That's false. If you piggy out on a bunch of carbs and lift a bunch of heavy weights, you will start to look bulkier for sure. But if you eat clean and you eat well and you keep your protein high and your healthy fats high and your carbs low and you lift, you just look sexy. And you fill things out nicely.
It's almost like we were programmed to do that.
We have really done ourselves a disservice as women. I was a teenager in the 90s and it was in vogue to look like a heroin addict. Mm-hmm. That was what was beautiful. So we starved ourselves down to oblivion. And my trainer, my coach, Mira, she's awesome. She is such a strong, strong woman. And she and I talk about this. She's like, you remember back when we used to run? And I'm like, oh yeah, those days when we used to run and starve ourselves. That was, those were the days.
What people don't realize, is that as the more we know about health, and as human beings, we think that more is more. So then you just said it, it's very easy for you to overtrain because we believe that, this is working for me, let me do it more. And that's not the case, that's not the case with almost anything.
It's not, because really I think the beauty of strength training is hormesis. So hormesis is, just for your audience, it's the idea that when you stress an organism, it responds in favor it responds favorably for short term. So like sauna is an idea of inflicting hormesis. When you have a house plant that you don't water for a while, it starts to wilt, you water it and it explodes. You've just put it through a stressful event. That's hormesis. And so strength training is hormesis. And the beauty and the recovery and the magic happens in the rest. It doesn't just happen in the training period. The rest period is so critical. How you nourish yourself, how you sleep, how you rest is critical. And so overtraining it's the American way, right? Just train more, build more muscle, but muscle only builds and regenerates. This is where regenerative medicine comes in. That only happens when you rest it well, you feed it well, it has the right nutrients. That muscle is literally, you can literally regenerate your muscle tissue directly.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you're actually regenerating all the cells in your body and all of your organ systems that you can't see, but muscle is an organ system in of itself, and it needs to be respected as such. So, overtraining is easy, but think about cardio and running and just tearing down all that tissue all the time and never giving it a chance to rebuild. That's a nightmare. And these women especially have no idea what's coming down the chute in 20, 30 years, but I see them in my office and they all have the same problems and they're all very, very difficult to treat.
Now, the second thing that I want to go at, is how did you meet Dr. Rick Marinelli? I've heard nothing but great things about him from both you and Dr. Adelson. And can you tell us a little bit about that? And then, let's begin with what is prolotherapy? What is the goal of PRP? What is the goal of stem cells?
So prolotherapy is, in my head, it's twofold. It's a technique, and then it's also the solution in the syringe. And so the technique of prolotherapy is the idea that when ligaments and tendons are injured, which is the bulk, I would say, of musculoskeletal injuries, where they insert on bone is called the enthesis. That is an area of high activity and high innervation. So lots of pain generation can come from there. And when you have bone and tendon ligament and tendon pulling away from bone at that enthesis point, you get a lot of pain. Ligaments are like rubber bands. When you overstretch them, they don't like to go back. And so prolotherapy as a technique is the idea that we are addressing and injecting each and every pain generating point. So in a shoulder, for instance, it's not just about getting juice in the joint. I am injecting every ligament and tendon in the region, origin insertion. I'm hitting every single spot that's tender on that patient. So that requires a high level and skill set in palpation and orthopedics and joint play. Like those are, people can get trained to inject all day, but it's worthless if you're not really good at diagnosing.
You can train a 6-year-old to inject. Right. The mechanics of pulling a plunger and pushing a plunger.
Exactly.
You can mark it. You can buy a book and make the marks.
Yep. But really finding the pain generator, and I'm really good at that. And that is a palpatory skill, and that's honed. And so anyway, I remember when I learned palpation, I was like, I can't feel anything. So it's a skill set that you can hone. So prolotherapy as a technique is that it doesn't matter what's in my syringe. It doesn't matter if PRP is in my syringe, platelet-rich plasma. It doesn't matter if there's dextrose. It doesn't matter if there's stem cells. The other thing when people think of prolotherapy is a dextrose solution. So it's sugar water, essentially. It's a hyperosmotic sugar solution. When injected, creates low-grade modulated inflammation, and the body responds by saying, hey, wake up, come over here. The stem cells that are in the area naturally, wake up. The growth factors that are in the area naturally, wake up. And so you're basically giving the body a gentle nudge to come over here and get some action going. Dextrose also works to tone down neurogenic inflammation. So it works in a really magical double way. I love dextrose. I put dextrose in everything. Low concentration, high concentration. I love it. And then that grows up. So PRP is platelet-rich plasma. Same technique for me in my practice. I'm just using a different solution in my syringe. That's where we take the patient's blood, spin it out, and harness the growth factors. All the naturopaths always come to me and say, I want to do PRP. And I tell them all the same thing. You have no right touching a syringe of PRP if you're not an awesome prolotherapist first, period. being an awesome prolotherapist takes time, it takes commitment, and it really takes commitment to a specialty and really knowing your orthopedics and training well. And so I'm really have grabbed the bull by the horns, and I'm trying to create training opportunities for physicians in my own clinic and then doing outreach brigades in Mexico and Cancun.
That's awesome.
We've been kicked out of all the organizations that allow us to go on medical brigades. And so I got tired of being told no. And I was like, I'm just going to create my own. And so I got together with 2 of my Mexican doctor friends who are awesome. And we are doing down in the Yucatan, we're doing once or twice a year, we're doing trainings, and we're doing it under their license. Naturopaths are not acknowledged in Mexico. So because of that, I have to pre-screen everyone. So everyone has to basically come through me at some point, because it's their license on the line. So I need to make sure people are up to snuff before we take them down there, because it's a pretty intense week. It's a very intense week. It's a lot of fun though. So yeah, so I'm doing that. I came upon this because of Rick Marinelli. Like I said, I started as his receptionist, and how it started was I was ordering supplies for him, and I ordered these 4-inch needles. And I was like, they're like swords. I'm like, what is this? And what do you do with it? And so he showed me, and he dropped needles into somebody's spine, and I thought, oh my God, what is happening here? So I started reading everything I could get my hands on at the time, and this was the late 90s, so there wasn't a lot of
there's not a lot now, and you know, there's a lot, but it's kind of hard to find it on PubMed and all that stuff.
Dean Reeves is a medical doctor who's really led the charge in the research in prolotherapy,
and there is a journal of prolotherapy.
Yep, and he's part of that. So drreeves.com, you can find all of his stuff. So through my training with Rick, and just working for him, I met Harry Adelson. Harry Adelson came into the picture later on. He and Rick became good friends. Rick treated him, changed his life. That's how he got turned on to prolotherapy. Was Rick treated his shoulder and gave it back to him because he was told he needed surgery, and Harry was not going to have that. And so Harry has made it his life goal to be an excellent injection therapist as well. And he's really led the brigade on stem cells and doing really novel stuff with that. He's amazing. He's in Park City. Rick loved him so much. Harry and I were like Rick's kids. You know, Rick had several children who I love all of them, but Harry and I were like the other adopted ones. And so Harry's like my brother, and he's really taken me under his wing since Rick passed and helped me quite a bit too. So I love him to death. And I send everyone to him who, you know, that's who I see. That's who I would send anyone who needs stem cells to. And he treated Dave Asprey, you know, like he's legit. And I'm so proud of the work he's doing for the profession as well.
I was so proud to be at the Bulletproof conference, and there were naturopaths presenting on the big stage. You know, it filled my heart. It was amazing. Yeah,
I was just surprised and shocked to be up there, and I figured I might as well just bring it because this is my shot, you know, like for naturopathy. When I was watching, I'm gonna cry. When I was watching Harry present, I was thinking, I was standing there with the gentleman who was helping us, you know, who rigged me up with my mic and everything, and he kind of knew our story, and Harry was talking about Rick, and I just thought, God, Rick would be so proud of me now. Like, because we're here, like me and Harry, we're here, you know, we're doing it. And if that's the only chance we get, then that's fine. But we did it. And that's awesome.
Now we're going to blow this off. Watch.
I'm on a quest. I really am. I'm on a quest because I figure, you know, the worst thing anyone can tell you is no. That's what my mom always told me. So I had a guy ask me last night, he was like, what drives you? What is this fire inside of you? I'm like, I have nothing to lose.
Oh my goodness. Have you listened to the musical Hamilton?
No, but I want to.
This is homework.
Okay,
you know, we like the same music. You know, we've talked about, you know, Nine Inch Nails and Guns N' Roses. You gotta go listen to Hamilton.
I will.
Do not throw away your shot.
And I have momentum and I have a voice. And what's most exciting for me and the work that I love that you're doing right now is that the more cool things I do, the more cool things land in my lap, and I say yes. Rob Lowe said once in an interview, why has it been so long and successful? And he said, because I always say yes. I never say no. And saying no is important for your health reasons, but I always say yes because I don't know who I'm going to meet. I mean, it might be a complete dud of a gig, but I might meet somebody really cool. Who knows? Like I might make a cool connection with another human. But more importantly, I keep having naturopaths that I've never even met reach out to me from all over the world saying, thank you. Yeah. Thank you for doing this work. Thank you for taking the charge. And I know that I'm just small peanuts in a big pond, but I plan on continuing to grow with this because for the sake of naturopathic medicine, like we need some rock stars, you know, and I'm not saying I'm a rock star, but we need some people out in the front saying, this is our medicine. No functional medicine doctors, you cannot gobble it up. I think of functional medicine as like the granddaughter of naturopathy.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful medicine. I'm glad it's reaching the masses. However, there is a place for naturopathy out there, and really that's foundational medicine to me. So
and for my listeners, having shoulder pain and getting an injection, whether it's a corticosteroid, whether it's stem cells, PRP, or that is not naturopathic medicine.
No, it's not. It's something we do. It's treatments we apply, but naturopathic medicine is really finding the root cause.
The root cause, yeah.
So why does that shoulder hurt? Is it a biomechanical issue? I will tell you, in 50% of cases, I will say no, it's not a biomechanical issue. It's a systemic issue presenting as musculoskeletal pain.
Unless you are an elite tennis player, or then it could be degeneration from overuse. But in most cases, it's probably an inflammatory issue.
Totally. If you have chronic joint pain, I challenge everyone. I'm like, go on a gluten-free, dairy-free diet, hardcore for 3 weeks. See how your pain responds, take note of it, and then go eat a pizza.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell me how you feel the next morning.
You will never touch pizza again.
Yeah, go on a gluten and dairy binge, eat a big one, really go for it, and then tell me how your hip or shoulders feel after that, because you will know very quickly that the foods you eat drive the pain you're living in.
Really funny story. I like to tell people that when you're stressed, that's the worst time for you to go and binge and be like, okay, I deserve this,
Right.
And this past week I had finals and super stressed, and I go, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to order a gluten-free pizza. So I order a gluten-free pizza. There is half a pizza sitting in the fridge because the repercussions from eating that carb bomb. Where like I had upset stomach, I wasn't feeling 100%, I just didn't feel optimal.
Yeah.
Because I'm so stressed because of my exams. I'm so stressed that something has to give. And in this case, I eat as clean as possible to let my digestion be without overwhelming it. And then that's going to help me get through this hormesis of exams.
Yeah, right. I had way back in the day. So when I was in school, I was doing both programs concurrently. And there were 2 years there that went by that I didn't even get a break, not a single spring break, Christmas break, nothing, because the quarters would overlap at the two schools. So I would drive across the city and go to the chiropractic college, then drive across and go to the naturopathic school. And then the quarters would overlap. So finals week would literally be like 2 weeks long, one at each school, or they would be both in the same week. I can't even tell you what that was like.
I can't even imagine you doing that.
I have PTSD from it. But this was long before ketosis became a tag word. It's been around forever, eons and decades. But I knew about it way back then for whatever reason. And I would go into ketosis. I would start in a ketotic diet about a week before finals or 2 weeks before finals. And I would stay in ketosis. And people would say, how in God's name are you taking 2 sets of finals at 2 different medical programs? And I'm like, ketosis was my secret weapon because it just put me in the zone. I would get so in the zone. Like, I think that's why it's actually optimal to starve yourself a little bit if you were out on the savannah, because your lights turn on. When you're a little bit hungry or you're really dialed in and you're living off ketone bodies in your brain, your instincts are on target. And you can see the matrix, like you are solid. And so I would just buzz through finals like it was nothing. And then I would go on vacation and I would derail. And I used to think it was, oh, my cortisol's dropping now, which is true. Like you're coming down the mountain post finals. But I also was, alcohol, carbs, all the things that make my body scream in horror. It's just not worth it. Like those things are not my friend.
One of the things that I do, and it's probably screwing me, but I do intermittent fasting. I do it. I've been doing it for this past 3.5 years, almost every day. And I don't put NCT oil on my coffee. I don't put butter in my coffee. I just drink coffee, 1 cup of coffee, 16 ounces. And I don't have my first meal until 1 or 2 p.m.
Yeah.
I have my last meal around 9 o'clock and again the next day. And if I have breakfast, I love breakfast, like huevos rancheros or something like that, it feels amazing. But I just function better as a human being on that intermittent fasting, low carb. Like I'm just sharper. I just feel so much better.
I think it's so true. And I ironically have done that my whole life without knowing what I was doing. I've never been a breakfast eater because it didn't make me feel good. And the breakfast options that I was given as a child, bless my parents' heart, was like cereal. It was like human kibble. Like, here, eat some. So I would eat cereal or toast or whatever other refined carb, sugary refined carb. Then I'd go to school, and by 10 a.m. I'd be falling asleep and starving to death. So my intuition just said, don't eat breakfast.
Yeah.
Of course, I probably wasn't having a great lunch, but once I started into eating clean, I still skip breakfast. If I really, if I've got a big day of patience, I'll pop I'll do like an egg over easy or something. I'll get just straight protein into me. And that really does help me. But like bone broth and coffee in the morning are kind of I was doing the fat coffee, the bulletproof type thing. I'll play with that off and on. But the problem people do is that no one tells them is that when you drink a high fat coffee in the morning, with whether it's butter or ghee or coconut oil or all of the above, and then you have your standard American breakfast of pastries and scones and all that other crap, now you're just giving yourself fatty liver.
Yeah.
Like now you're just creating a nightmare of insulin and metabolic syndrome. So like no one ever tells people that. It's I know that Dave Asprey in his book goes into it, but the problem that most people are having is they're having their fat coffee thinking they're doing themselves a favor, but then they're also having their refined carbohydrates, which is a train wreck.
That's what happens when your doctor is Dr. Google or Professor YouTube, and now I'm gonna call her, I don't know, Nurse Facebook, because it's like so fast, and you just see this like animations of this is how you make bulletproof coffee, and you think, oh, this is the answer. But to me, it's more important to educate my patients on what people have this mentality of what do I need to eat to lose weight. Yes. And that makes no sense to me. What do you add to something to lose it? No. I think it's more of what do you need to avoid to lose weight?
Or even reframing that into what do I need for me, and what I am always trying to get, especially women, to do is what do I need to do to get strong?
Yeah.
And I think that's why I love strength training so much, is because when you build muscle, your muscle screams at you for what it wants. It doesn't want crappy refined carbs. It doesn't want pizza. It wants protein and fat. And when you strength train, you automatically intake enough water because you have to, because otherwise you feel dehydrated. You also tend to sleep really well because you just put yourself into a really optimal place for sleep. And so for me, it's like, what do I need to eat to get stronger? What do I need to eat to fuel my muscles? Because if you fuel your muscles work as an all-day fat burner, and the fat will fall off.
You mentioned something, and I didn't pick on it, but you said that you train with a purpose. Mm-hmm. And if you don't water, if you don't eat, if you don't for that purpose, then you start seeing those numbers drop.
Yep.
And now
or get injured.
And now, but when you have a purpose, you want to hit your PR. You want to hit it all, almost like it's like gamification of health. Like you're doing all of these things because you want to hit that goal.
Yeah, absolutely. It is like a game. I get so bummed at myself when I don't get my protein in adequately. But I trained hard that day, and I spent money to train hard with my trainer, and I'm just like, damn it, Tina, you really did yourself a disservice today by not getting enough, or in the last few days by not getting enough protein. Because left to my own devices, I'm an undereater. I am really good at self-starvation. We talked about this before in the concept of orthorexia. I was an anorexic my whole life.
Wow.
And I underate, and purposely underate, and then not purposely spent the rest of my life under eating. And it wasn't until I started training, I was about a year in, and I was getting all these chronic injuries. I wasn't healing. I was getting no gains. I was getting no muscle hypertrophy. And I'm like, what is wrong? And I just simply wasn't eating enough. And so making myself eat, making it a priority, that's really hard for me. Left to my own devices, I'll work myself all day and I won't ingest any food, and then go to bed and not even be hungry and wonder why I don't feel very good. And I think we can do that too with eating too healthy. We can totally go overboard. It's called orthorexia. When people get hardcore paleo or hardcore into ketosis or hardcore low carb, they can often create a psychosis within themselves that that's troublesome too.
So I think equally as dangerous.
It really is. It really is, because then they come into our offices and they're thyroids are tanked out and their adrenals are tanked out. And intermittent fasting, just real quick, that's a lot easier for men to do than women. And so women need to be cognizant to keep those intermittent fasting windows a bit shorter. And, that's a conversation for another day, but just really listening to your body and not following some prescribed guru's promise of success, but really doing your education, learning what you need to learn, finding the right resources, and then putting it together for yourself in an intelligent, educated way. That's because once your instincts turn on, you'll know what to do, and then you got to listen to your instincts.
Greg Everett, he talks about the secret squirrel plan, where he goes like, someone says, I'm going to do 3-2-1 by Wendler, and I'm going to include intermittent fasting, and I'm going to take this exogenous ketone, and I'm gonna and you start adding and you never get results, because 3-2-1 it's a plan on itself. Intermittent fasting, it's a plan in itself, and combining, you are overwhelming the hormesis factor, and now you're breaking the camel's back. So now what you need to do is actually just take a plan, any plan, whether it's 5x5, Wendler 3-2-1, anything, and do it for 6 weeks and commit to it and do it to the T and see what your results are. And then after that, try another plan or stick to it or whatever, for variation. But these people that are putting out these plans, these people that have been very successful with this stuff, they've done their research. You are not the expert. And sometimes you just need to hire a personal trainer.
Yeah, that's the best money spent. I think hiring a good strength and conditioning coach, somebody who's been trained adequately in barbell, kettlebell, just good strength and conditioning, I think that's key. I think finding a good nutritional therapist that is open to a low carb kind of diet lifestyle. The Whole30, for instance, love that book, love that program. It's a great thing to put somebody through for 30 days to reset, especially autoimmune patients. Wonderful to reset their system. How sustainable is that? I don't really know, because I see a lot of athletes who are like, God, I am so weak and I feel so terrible. And so all of these diets are not for everyone. But like you said, committing for 6 weeks, I think, is critical. And then figuring out how do you tweak that for what works for you. Don't fall off the wagon, but tweaking it, because I personally feel horrible on a terribly low carb diet. I used to think that was the answer. When I wasn't strength training, it was the answer for me and my hormones. I immediately lose my breasts. I immediately lose my butt. I start to get sick all the time. I'm cold all the time. I start to age rapidly in my face. And so for me, it's a balance. Like what works for me. And that's the journey, right? That's taken me forever to figure out. But yeah, hiring a good strength and conditioning coach. I tell people that all the time. I'm like, go hire so-and-so, not me.
Yeah,
your joints
exactly.
hurt because you're not strong. It's not because you need PRP. It's because you're deconditioned,
So if I have any practitioners out there that want to do some training with you, how can they learn how to do Prolotherapy the right way?
So there are lots of different places they can go to check it out, but getting in touch with me would be a good start. And they can find me at drtyna.com, DRTYNA. And on my website, I've got a tab that says training for practitioners.
That's awesome.
Or seminars for practitioners. So that's a great place to start, and getting a hold of me through that area. Sign up for my newsletter and get on it there. Also, I'm on social media, kind of all over the place. I'm on Twitter and Instagram as Dr. Tyna, Tyna, and I'm on Facebook, Tyna Moore, NDDC. So they can find me there. I list that stuff there too. So they can, it's really hard for me to get the word out. The last seminar I put out that's happening in January sold out in like 6 hours.
Jeez.
And I had all these people contact me and they were upset. And I'm like, I put it on Facebook and I went to work and came home and it was full. So
what type of licenses, what's the minimum license that you need to have?
I'm really, my heart is with naturopathy. Okay. So they need to be either a 4th year naturopathic student to take my needling course in the United States. You have to be licensed as an ND. I can only take licensed NDs to Mexico. The other professions have to go through a different organization, because the way that we have this set up, it's only for naturopaths. But my training's in the US, and I'm actually just about to launch an online academy of regenerative medicine training for all practitioners. And really the goal being, I have such a cool network of people in my life, from chiropractors to PTs to strength and conditioning guys, all these different people. I'm going to bring them all together and throw down some cool knowledge all in one hub so that
Awesome.
so that all practitioners can gain access, and trying to get CEU credits for most of them.
Yeah, if you
So
need any help with like fascia,
yeah,
yeah, I
totally.
can totally send you some really neat articles on that.
Oh no, maybe I'll have you just do a course for me. So I'm trying to just get really cool practitioners all in one hub as like a big educational academy online. So that's coming in the new year. I'm really excited about it.
That's
That's like my baby. So
That's awesome. What I'd like to do is like maybe wait like 3 months, 4 months, and start asking people for questions, and maybe have you answer people's questions, because this has been such a cool conversation. It'd be
yeah,
awesome to have you around and help people and guide them.
I'm game. And also, just for anyone listening, get on my newsletter, sign up through my website, because I'm really honest. If you haven't noticed, I'm pretty much blunt and to the point. I don't BS. And my newsletter follows that format, and I put 2 out a week, and it's a lot of it's basically just all of the gold I've learned along the way. I throw down all kinds of great health info, and people love it. So I would encourage people to sign up for that and get on my list, and I promise to continue to make really great content in the new year. So
Awesome. Well,
yeah.
Dr. Tyna Moore, it's been a pleasure. This has been probably one of my favorite podcasts that I've recorded so far.
Oh, so fun.
I hope to see you at a conference soon. I know you're going to be speaking at a bunch of them, and you're going to have them on your website.
Yeah, I should probably start doing that, huh?
Yeah.
No, I haven't been doing that. That's a great idea.
In Portland, women's health, you're going to have that in.
Yeah, so through NCNM, through the Naturopathic College here, there is a autoimmune conference coming in January, which looks really cool. David Brady's going to be there, and then there is one in March for women. It's a
Awesome.
women's health conference that's
Cool.
going to be really cool. So both of those are here, and then I'm actually starting to work with SCNM, so I'll probably see you
Awesome.
in Arizona soon. Yeah.
What are you going to be doing with us?
It's secret still, but it's in the regenerative medicine space,
realm.
And so
Awesome.
they've asked me to participate. So I was like, come to the sun? Sure.
So awesome. Well, thank you so much for giving me this interview. Thank you for your time. This has been such an honest conversation, and I can't wait to see the response.
Yes, thank you. And I hope you have a great holiday and get some rest.
I will.
Take good care of yourself.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.